Paw Patrol has had an unprecedented legacy. It's one that not many in its category have been able to achieve. Despite the show being made for the preschool category, it has gone on to produce 10 consecutive seasons, one full one each year, 2 successful theatrical films, a live show, a balloon in a Thanksgiving parade, and sales when it comes to merch and toy products, with each year releasing sub-series in order to keep the content fresh. The result has turned the series into a multi-billion-dollar franchise. It doesn't seem to be stopping anytime soon, with the series announcing an 11th season set for release sometime in 2024, the second season of Rebel and Crew's spin-off series in the same year, and a third theatrical film on the way in 2026. This is all driven by the adventures of Ryder, the pups, and the cool transforming vehicles and pup packs the pups get to use, the transformation being the core element of the series and has been the core since the idea of transformation for the series came to be back in 2010. From this point until Paw Patrol's debut in August of 2013, it underwent a good amount of changes regarding character designs and how it could have looked versus the 3D animation art style we see now in the show, but also how this show kind of saved Spin Master from a decline that seemed endless. Today I want to take a look back at this and the concept arts we've gotten over the years with this series and see how slowly but surely these would evolve into the Paw Patrol we recognize today. So let's start this off with Spin Master themselves. Formed in 1994 by Ronnen, Harary, Anton Raby, and Ben Verratti, Spin Master had mild success in the late 90s and early 2000s, but it's during 2006 when they struck gold with their most successful product up to that point, with Bakugan, a card and capsule game containing plastic balls or marbles, and once you roll it, your Bakugan would appear. It became so popular that an anime series was made for the product not too long after, in Japan in 2007, and dubbed in the US a year later. Bakugan ended up taking Spin Master to $1 billion in yearly sales, and it seemed like things were continuing to go their way. But that wasn't meant to be, and as with most products, Bakugan had its life cycle, with really good success early on, followed by a decline in sales, which turned out to be a rapid decline, and the start of 2010s, Spin Master were in some deep trouble. Ron and Harry, the co-founder of Spin Master, recall that from 2010 to 2013, they would lose nearly half of their revenue, going from $950 million in 2010 to $500 million in 2013, including 8 straight quarters where they failed to turn a profit. As a result, over a 24-month span, they ended up having 4 restructurings, with a third of their staff being let go. Spin Master was in a decline that seemed endless and realized that they needed another hit if they wanted to get themselves out of this hole they were in. And Harry just had the idea of what they could do, a transformation toy, kind of similar to Bakugan just without the plastic balls and capsules. But unlike that product and other transformation products like Transformers, Spin wanted this product to appeal to preschoolers rather than the usual 6 to 11 age demographic, as it was something that had never been tried in that area before. But it was also a bit of a risk, as they hadn't done anything in the preschool category before. Most of Spin's products have been made for the older kids group, not preschoolers, and the ability of preschoolers being able to operate these transformative toys on top of that. Despite this, they had to take their chances given their current situation. So Jennifer Dodge, the vice president and executive producer for Spin Master Entertainment, put out the call for creators to come up with proposals for this transformative theme. There are conflictions on how many proposals were sent back. Harry recalled that there were 5 and the Daily Mail article claimed there were 6. But out of these, there are only 4 that we know of. One being robotic bugs, another featuring dinosaurs, another with outer space, but the final one was the big winner, sent by a man from the UK, all too well with being a part of animation and even having big success of his own. That man's name is Chapman, the creator of Bob the Builder, a widely successful animated series, and served a role in many others over the years. Chapman and Spin Master had some history prior to this. According to Chapman, they almost had a deal in place for Fifi and the Flower Tots, one of Chapman's other shows he created, but it never went through. Despite this, he would be on Spin Master's radar years later as one of the creators selected to come up with a proposal for this transformation series. And Chapman's proposal would end up being the one Spin Master would go with, but not without competition. According to Chapman, there was a vote taken to see which concept would be used going forward, this being between his concept and another one based around outer space. Chapman's ended up winning, and this is what it looked like. The proposal included rescue dogs under the name Robbie and the Rescue Dogs, but this concept art back when it was first revealed in 2017 was called Raffi and the Rescue Dogs. As of the last few years, and even by Ronnen and Harary himself, it's been referred to as Robbie and the Rescue Dogs. However, this wasn't the first name for the series. As of last year, it was revealed to be originally called Robbie's Pup Pack, though there is not much known about this version of the series. Throughout the concepts, Ryder went through several name changes in this process. Along with Robbie and Raffi, he also was called Roddy in addition to the other two, but the latter was too British to use. This concept most notably features the pups on 2 legs instead of all 4s that we see today. Some of the pups wear headgear such as police hats and firefighter helmets, with the initials RD above their respective departments, either for Robbie's dogs or possibly for the location they're in, which seems like Adventure Bay wasn't the original name for this until later on. And speaking of this location, Chapman did a second concept which features Robbie and one of the pups in a helicopter flying over the town, which Robbie's helmet and the helicopter both have dual crossbow insignias on them. This could be the original logo for the team. This location appears to have more structures and land area compared to what Adventure Bay looked like early on in the series. Chapman envisioned this concept with the dogs being rescued by Robbie before joining the team, but Scott Kraft, the first writer for the series, and Jamie Whitney, the series' first director, scrapped this idea during production, as to them it was too much backstory to convey in an 11-minute episode. So I gotta ask, were they planning on telling the pups' backstories in just one episode, or was it to be spanned in multiple eps? Because it seems easier to do across multiple, but at least this idea would come back with Rebel's backstory in Season 1 and Skies and Chases in the theatrical films. Still, the rescued dogs theme would continue into future concepts, with this next one, which was revealed last year, still under the name Robbie and the Rescue Dogs. This concept features Robbie and one of the pups, which looks a bit like an earlier design for Marshall, as some fans have said. The pup this time is on all 4s versus on hind legs that we saw in the original concept, and they both have helmets with the dual crossbow insignia that we saw in the second concept on the helicopter and Robbie's helmet. Instead of using a pup pad to call the pups, Robbie uses a whistle, which apparently is a musical whistle, so that's pretty interesting. And finally, to the top of this image, we get one of the earliest logos for the series thus far, featuring a helmet on top of it with the R, and speed lanes running alongside as well. This next one features more realistic, and not to mention uncanny, designs for the pups. This location is called the Rough Ranch, which for this one, we get to see a different looking headquarters called the Watchtower. It doesn't really have a good ring to it, unlike the Lookout Tower, but it does have some unique features such as a satellite dish, black and yellow construction tape in front of what appears to be a garage door, a paw print as the window, and 2 slides instead of 1. The pup's headgear features a bone as the insignia in contrast to the other concept arts where there were 2 bones present. The pups have traditional backpacks on them instead of pup packs the show uses, so those must have came later down the line as we'll see. The pup houses look entirely different too. Everyone has a front door on them and not just Chases in the show, which can slide up. Most of them are closely related to what the final version of their pup houses would look, except for Skies, the most noticeable out of them being more gold-colored and much wider than her pup house in the series today, much slimmer and, of course, pink. The final pieces of concept art with Robbie and the rescue pups are found on johnmorilia.com, which unfortunately has been wiped clean of all content included on the page and is no longer in use. However, this page was archived back in May of 2013, 3 months before Paw Patrol made its debut. There appear to be more concepts for the show on the website, but sadly these weren't archived, including a test scene featuring an otter. It makes me wonder if there was footage with this test animation at some point on this site. What a find that would be if that were the case. The concept art we got from this features the same designs for the pups that we saw in the Rough Ranch concept from before, but now we get a more closer look at them, and now looking at this, the pups' looks aren't as bad as I originally thought. This image also includes Robbie, who is much slimmer here compared to his previous counterparts, sporting longer hair, and his attire with the patches throughout looks similar to what a Boy Scout would wear, including the cap which features a dog alongside, as well as the dog bone insignia, now with 2 shocks on each side. This goes for the rest of pups as well. We also get a look at the pups' pup tags with Chase, Rockies, and Zumas looking more identical to their final pup tag designs than the other 3, with Rebel sporting a shovel instead of a wrench, Marshall having a fire hydrant instead of a flame, and Sky's having her Wayne's insignia, but doesn't seem to have the propeller in the center as seen on her tag in the final version. It's kind of hard to tell from this perspective. This next one features a similar version of Marshall that we saw with that last one, going through different body types for the pups, and the last one features a couple pups in them, but none seem to be recognizable as any of the pups from the show. The closest I was thinking was Rocky, since he has a floppy ear, and a couple of these pups do have a floppy ear. So those were all the concepts revolving around Robbie and the rescue dogs. The exact date of when most of these concepts, for the exception of the first two, were released is unknown. It's estimated between 2010 or 2012, but again, no exact date given. Now, before I talk about the 2012 concepts, I want to bring up these ones, which were made by Joe Allard over at Design Devil, in which it features Rocky, Sky, Zuma, and Rubble, who is actually called Digger in this one. Apparently, Allard or Devil Design worked on these for Spin Master's line of Paw Patrol figures. Even though these don't look close to what the toys look like, it seems like this was posted around 2017, but it's unknown when these were created originally. But now let's move on to the infamous 2012 concept arts done by Amanda Zima for Guru Studios. Let's start with Chase's first, which we can see the designs are nearly identical to the final version of the show. The only difference is being Chase doesn't have his star pup tag, he only has 2 chevrons on his attire instead of 3, his siren is on the top of his pup pack instead of the side, and Ryder is sporting a more orangish looking vest. The final version is red. There is a new logo in the top left corner of these concepts, and it shows that Robbie has been dropped in favor of Ryder, and the title has been shortened, now called Ryder's Paw Patrol, with a more orangish background to the logo, much like Ryder's vest here. Chase underwent several changes in his design as well as style. It is shown here with the top left being nearly identical to the final version from the show. The bottom 2 on the left is more rounded from Chase's neck down around his back compared to the others. Some of the top designs show Chase's fur being darker than others, and one in particular being lighter than the rest, and also how far his brown fur comes down to on his legs, some higher than others. Note how the pups in these concepts have straighter legs compared to the concepts from Robbie and the rescue dogs having more anatomically correct legs. According to Dodge, this was done to be more puppy-like and would help the toys stand up on their own, thus the change. The refreshed looks coming out in the near future, it seems to go back to what the original concept arts were doing with the anatomically correct hind legs. Moving on to Sky's, her wings in this one are mostly pink with black at the very end, and in the show, Sky's wings are mostly silver with pink on each end. Sky also sports these white troughs around her pup tag and back of her attire. This isn't present in the final, the ones around her tag, but the troughs on her back are still pink. This reminds me a bit of Everest's look on her attire, the white troughs on the front. Sky was also inspired by Keith Chapman's own cockapoo, which Sky, of course, is one herself. Next up, we have Rubble, who I don't think had anything changed from this concept to the final version, so we're just going to skip over him. Now let's move on to this one with Marshall, Zuma, and Rocky. Marshall doesn't have all his spots on him. It doesn't really matter since it's a concept design, but he sports a red collar instead of his usual yellow in the show. Zuma sports an orange one instead of blue, and Rocky sports a green one instead of orange. While on the subject of Rocky, his fur color seems to be a beige color instead of gray, and he doesn't sport a floppy ear in this one. And of course, how can I mention the 2012 concepts without talking about Timber, the St. Bernard who sadly never made it into the final version of the show. Timber would have been the first adult dog on the show if he were included, and would have lived with Jake on his mountain. Side note, I love the fact that they're wearing matching hats. Timber has a pouch attached around his neck, but I'm not sure as to what it could be for or even signify, but I do have to wonder if Timber would have been a mentor-like figure for the pups. It would be a good way to use him and maybe served as an inspiration for what Everest would become later down the line, being the snow pup. Let's move on to Callie, or Callista as she's called here, Callista being a more fancier name for her, and by her earlier designs it seems that way. Bigger in one and much smaller in the other, but doesn't sport her gray fur coat until this one, though albeit there is much more white than gray on this one. It's a bit similar with Katie. Not one of these designs sports her traditional blonde hair as we see in the final version of the show, as well as not sporting her striped dress until later designs. only one sports it in pink, which would be the color in the final. Though if you just take the dress from 8, combine with the pants and shoes from 5, and put some blonde hair on her, and then, boom, you got Katie. And lastly for this, we have Wally. Oh, wait a minute, that's the wrong Wally. Give me a sec. There we go. Wally the Walrus. The only differences are his tusks and snout, which have changed multiple times, from his tusks being longer to him not having a mustache on some, which looks a little bit cursed in my opinion. There's also 2 more concepts that were revealed last year of Chase and Marshall with their vehicles and pup houses, again close to the final version and the 2012 concepts, which makes me think they were made around that time as well. The most noticeable takeaways are Marshall having his fire emblem on his helmet, but it's all silver instead of red and orange. Chase's truck having a winch on the back of his cruiser in addition to the front, and each pup having a cute little mailbox right beside their pup houses. Afterwards, there's this map of Adventure Bay looking identical to what it looks like in the show, the difference being in some of the named locations. Most are the same while others are different, including the lookout being called Ryder's Ranch instead of the Ruff Ruff Ranch from the Robbie and the Rescue Dog concepts. So even late in the show's production, the lookout tower wasn't even the name of the headquarters. Katie's pet parlor for this is called Rebecca's Pet Care, so it seems like Rebecca was Katie's original name before they changed it to the latter later on. Seal Island is called Captain Turbot's Island, maybe just a placeholder for what would become Seal Island. Farmer Yumi's farm is called Mr. Fuji's farm. This could have been that Farmer Yumi wasn't thought of as a character yet, or maybe an earlier name for Farmer Al. And finally, Jake and Tiny's Chalet and Ski Patrol. This one is interesting because of Tiny, who could be a later name for Timber, or just a new character altogether, but in the final version, Jake doesn't have a pup with them at his resort. That is, until Everest came along in Season 2. So it all worked out in the end. And finally, if you look in the top left, there is a new logo where the name of the series has been shortened down to just Paw Patrol instead of just Ryder's Paw Patrol from before. But there is still one more logo we need to discuss about, and that is this one right here on this model of Captain Turbot, looking very close to the one used in the show. Just take out the yellow behind the word paw, put it behind the letters, and you got your final Paw Patrol logo. Also, fun fact, Captain Turbot's design with the black eyes and long nose was based on Bob the Builder, of course another show Chapman also created. So for reference, here is all the logos we've gotten so far from the concept arts, with the shield part in particular going through multiple changes before taking its final shape slowly but surely over time would begin to form into the logo we know today. So there you have it. That is all the concept arts we've gotten on Paw Patrol. It was interesting seeing how the concepts went from more realistic looking designs to the more cartoony ones that we see today, and how different the show could have looked had those stuck around. Throughout the summer of 2013, promos began airing on Nickelodeon of the new show, with the pups getting their own little segments, even at one point having their own motto for the team, but it hasn't been used since this promo it's been featured in. Scott Simons would provide vocals for the theme song, which there is a video out there for that with him in the studio. So if you want to see that, the link is in the description, along with all the sources I used for this video. As for Paw Patrol, it would debut on August 12th, 2013. And as they say, the rest is history.